So, how playable is World of Warcraft without add-ons? I know it's been done, and I have more than a few friends that use minimum add-ons to even no add-ons. One of them challenged me to give it a try. For what it's worth, I already run a pretty lightweight add-on setup, but those add-ons do cover very core parts of the game, like enemy nameplates, audio alerts for incoming damage events and spellcasts, etc. So, how hard is this going to be? My name is Baz the Healer, and while I did survive my no to low add-ons challenge, I have a lot to report back on. A huge shoutouts, by the way, to my friend Lunar Buo, a fellow content creator in the WoW space, and the one who asked for this video for my 500 subs during the subathon. We're currently at like 700 something, which means expect like 2 more videos that my chat will ask for. And if you want to be a part of that conversation, stop on by Bowser the Healer on Twitch and we'll talk shop. We have a few more videos to workshop, so get in there. As for my personal add-ons, I really don't run a ton. Bigwigs and little wigs for alerts, Plater for enemy nameplates, Weak Aura for small tracking like tracking Ignore Pain or Iron Fur, and like my mouse cursor. Details for damage and healing meters, and Omni CD to track my team's cooldowns better so that I know when they're using offensive or defensive cooldowns and can, like, say, give out PIs or know who to use my externals on. Everything else is like diminishing stat values or world quest trackers, so they're unimportant for this video. Now, I did end up with one add-on left on and another one for when I healed, and it's just that I don't like my mouse cursor going away when I hold down the right mouse button in WoW. Now, I know I can fix this with like an external program, but I didn't really want to try to find a solution, so I unloaded all of my weak auras but my ultimate mouse cursor. I was actually trying to find a simpler one, but it just wasn't loading, and so for the sake of stream, I decided whatever, I'll leave that one on. I started as a DPS. I don't really want to play healer without Plater, and I'll totally explain why later, but this meant I had nothing. No details, no bigwigs, no Omni CD, nothing. And right off the bat, oh boy, default enemy nameplates kinda suck. They're either way too small or they're way too big. I chose stacking and oh god, they don't stack well. There's too much space between them and they keep the buffs super far away as well. And then they don't stack properly, so like the spell cast can still get hidden anyway. You can't see percentage health, so you don't know how much health is remaining on a target other than eyeballing it. This can make finding a priority target a little bit difficult, and Shadow Priest does like to do priority damage, so it was a little bit frustrating. I had to just rely on game knowledge, and sometimes I was wrong. I grabbed a target that was in fact no longer the priority, and whatever, it's fine. It's just having to tab through multiple targets to figure out the health values in the first place isn't very fun. And while I might know the priority targets, imagine doing this in a new season or as a new player, that might be a little much to ask. And abilities on nameplates are really hard to parse as well. There's this like texture going on with the spell or ability cast, but it's really hard to know at a glance, especially out of the corner of your eye. Is it unstoppable or is it a kickable cast? Now you're looking for a shield. If there's a shield, it's uninterruptible, but this isn't obvious when you're going through the targets and when they're buried under nameplates. Furthermore, there's this interesting texture that they put on the cast bar, probably to make it seem a little more magical, and you know what, it's great, but it's very hard to tell whether it's yellow or whether it's gray. So I'd like a high contrast option here to kind of keep the aesthetic, but allow me to very quickly see which one it is, again, out of the corner of my eye. Also, I wasn't really prepared to play without big wigs or little wigs. DBM if you're one of those players. Now, there is some useful Blizzard text for some mechanics, so like, I would know something is coming up because the text would pop up on screen, but enemy spellcasts don't have any sound cues. Yeah, okay, some monsters like grunt or something when they use certain moves, but not everything has a distinct audio cue, and that can get even harder to hear when everyone's casting spells. So you have to see it visually. Some players probably have no problem with that, but as somebody who was kind of trained on the game with audio cues in mind, I don't always know that a spell is going off, and it caught up to me multiple times, especially when I played healer. Damage feedback is also a little all over the place, and this one I don't think I would have recognized if I didn't play with no add-ons. So real quick, this is my prot warrior fighting an AoE, and you'll watch me do some attacks here, and it's kind of clear that I'm doing good damage, right? You can see the attacks, the sound effects are good, everything here is awesome. It's working as intended. I know that I did my rotation mostly right, if not perfectly, and yay, I did damage, right? Wahoo. Okay, now watch me do a sequence on Shadow Priest. Now, The visuals are good. The sound effects are great. I love the shadow effects on Priest. They're among some of my favorites in the game. But the numbers. Oh lord, the numbers. Oh, what damage here is Psychic Link? What here is Vamp Touch or Shadow Word Pain? Do you know how much my Void Torrent did? How much is the Devouring Plague doing? And that's what I mean, like, especially like in Tropic Rift, like, when this blows up, half the time I can't even find the number for how much damage my Entropic Rift did. I would love some more organization of the damage numbers, having my dots maybe aggregate downwards and like be smaller, and maybe have my Void Torn and my Devouring Plague show up bigger as they're kind of core moves to my kit. I just want to know what these numbers are doing, and there are add-ons for this, but the baseline feature isn't very good. It struggles with lots of numbers back to back, and it tends to struggle with a lot of stacking numbers. But in general, I think WoW's really nailed the impact of the number popping up to tell you did damage. They did a great job with that. So a little bit of cleanup on this, maybe some new features for damage numbers, I think would really make it look nice. But I do think it's a little silly that I need a damage meter to know if I'm doing good damage or not on Shadow Priest, because I can't possibly parse all of those numbers and figure out how good I'm doing. I'm just kind of praying that I'm doing good enough. And for the most part, I played fine. It was jarring being behind mechanics because I don't have any boss timers or spell timers or anything like that, but I know these dungeons. I have the rhythm down. But I don't think my gamer rhythm should be the only thing a player uses to track attacks and spell casts. WoW does use the energy bar of bosses to kind of show what certain attacks are coming, and I love that, but I'd like a little more data about what spells they have coming up. Maybe some cool new generic icons for certain styles of attacks, and then you can just show me how many seconds until that particular spell goes off. I don't necessarily need as complicated of data as I could get on, say, Plater or with Weak Aura, but I will absolutely take something so that I can have an idea of what moves are coming in next. This was a pretty big deal in Priory of the Sacred Flame. I don't have any footage of this run, unfortunately, but whenever I'm healing and I can't see what moves are coming, there's things like Resto Druid and Discipline Priest where you really want to be able to prep before a mechanic. And while in theory a player has done a lower level version of the dungeon and can probably figure out in their head that something's coming up soon that's going to do a lot of damage, if you're not sure though when that's going to happen, you're going to either waste a ton of mana or you're going to be slow to the punch and get people killed, and I just don't like that. Also, Plater. I need to talk about why I have to play with Plater as a healer, and the reason is simple. I can't track who's being targeted without it. Now, there's also a Weak Aura that does this, and I actually recommend having both, but knowing who's about to be attacked lets me know if I should run in and use, say, Psychic Scream, or if it's time for me as a healer to use my Interrupt skill, because sometimes somebody's going to take a lethal amount of damage because they're getting targeted by every mob in the room. It's very important to know that that hunter's about to take 5 Shadow Bolts, so you can go in and Leg Sweep, Psychic Scream, whatever, and save the day. I feel like this is a must-have kind of feature, and I think the Weak Aura version might be one of the better ones Blizzard could implement, but the fact that it's not in the game I think makes healing and surviving as a DPS way harder than it needs to be. Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy XIV have these aggro lines, and I would love if these aggro lines targeted the player that's about to get hit. That could be a really cool way to convey that kind of information. God, what a cool game design idea. I love this. And also as a healer, you sometimes get kind of caught up in like the crowd control, and then you're healing a bunch, and then you're catching up and doing damage, and then all of a sudden someone lost half their life bar. I really need those sound effects sometimes to cue me in that an attack is going off. This again might just be a me problem as somebody who learned this game with those kinds of add-ons, but I feel like that's pretty pivotal information. It's really hard to play without it. You know what was shocking though that I missed, because I didn't think I was going to miss this one, the HPS meters. Okay, I have an entire rant about this, and I can make a whole video about it. So long story short, healing meters are not the best at knowing how good you're doing. You see, healing meters only work because there's damage to heal, right? If there's no damage to heal, then you don't do any healing. And unlike a DPS who always has something to hit, you as a healer don't always have something to heal. If there's no healing to be done in the dungeon, that means that the players are playing really clean and there's not a lot of extra damage coming in. But if there's a ton to heal and then someone dies, I had players go, oh, well, I must not be that good of a healer. Like, homie, they died to 5 swirlies underneath their feet and they didn't move. They wanted to fire another chaos bolt. Like, that's not a healer problem. So HPS meters can have this downside. You see it a lot with raiders. A lot of people think that in raid you need to have the super high HPS number to be a good healer, but that's just not actually how healing works a majority of the time. And so while high HPS numbers can be really good, you need to really understand what's being healed and if the heals are efficient based on a class by class basis. But when you're in a dungeon and everyone's taking a ton of damage and you're blasting heals, it's nice to look down and go, oh, that's a really big number. Sometimes you don't get like a sense of how much your absorbs are doing or your rot healing is doing, because you just don't see the health bars going up and down as much, but you do get that information from the HPS meters. So I actually really like having them around. I think maybe it's my job to inform more people about how healing works so that people can stop looking at HPS numbers and wondering if they're doing good or not. Now, speaking about feedback, the good news for healing is that the rest of healing does have a nice kind of aesthetic to it. You watch the health bars go up, that means you're doing something right. You know when your heals feel lackluster because the health bars aren't going up nearly as quickly. You get a sense of the texture of your heals and how they should generally feel, and it works. So you don't always need those HPS meters. But you know what aesthetically is missing from WoW, and I forget because of add-ons? Victory themes. Some of you are going to laugh because you're classic players, you've played forever, and you don't really think about hearing a victory theme when you beat a boss. But beating a boss in WoW is a little boring. Like, there's a sound effect that plays that says that the mob has been defeated. You know, there's the sound of you getting your loot, and they have a death rattle voice line. And those are always great, but that's all you get. Now, I have a custom sound in Little Wigs and Big Wigs to play when I beat a boss, and it sounds like this. And I've really grown to like hear that and pop off like, yes, we beat the fight. And I know that sounds really silly, but Blizzard's music is always really good, but it's a bit more ambient, right? Except this expansion. This expansion's got a lot of like really good, really strong songs in it. I would really like to see Blizzard use their musicians a bit more here. Maybe we have seasonal thematic like victory themes, or maybe expansion victory themes. I don't know. I don't have like core memories tied to the Stormwind theme or the Orgrimmar theme. I have core memories assigned to Shadowlands, so I don't really have the same perspective a lot of people do on the music in WoW, but I actually think that having some more WoW themed victory music could be a really cool way to add a sort of memory to the game that people can have for clearing fights. And maybe having this separate from the normal music setting so that you can feel it when you get it could be a cool touch. This is purely aesthetics though, so not everyone's gonna want this, but I had to put this in here. Speaking of aesthetics, I really want to know that my teammates are using cooldowns. Now, I use OmniCD because I like being able to track cooldowns. This serves two purposes. One, when I want to be able to power infuse somebody, I can see that somebody's using a particular cooldown and I can go, great, I'll just hit them with the button and they'll take off and do more damage. But it also serves a purpose when my tank is not pressing shield block or shield wall and is suddenly dying. I can check to see if they're using their tools. This isn't to flame or anything like that, but healers can genuinely be gaslit by tanks saying, well, I'm hitting my defensives, what are you doing wrong? And the answer is they have 20% iron for uptime. No, they're not hitting their defensives, it's not your fault. But I wish both of these kinds of information could be conveyed to a player in a more aesthetically pleasing way, or something that can be in the baseline game. What's crazy is that Blizzard actually has this during AWC. If you're ever watching a PvP broadcast from Blizzard, you're going to notice that the nameplates will set on fire when people are in cooldowns. I believe there's effects for defensives as well, cooldown and action trackers, you name it. They got a lot of information on this interface, and where is it? Where is any of this information in an actual like gameplay setting? I would love to have a lot of these tools. I'm not sure if this is a custom bit of like firmware for, say, World of Warcraft on the tournament realm, but God, I'd really like having these features. Can we make this happen? This would fix a lot of my issues with why I use OmniCD. Granted, I'll still probably use OmniCD, but it'd be nice to see my teammates are popping off. I want to know they're popping off. Let me enjoy their W's, right? Like, I want people to know that I'm pressing cooldowns as a healer. I want to know that my tank's pressing cooldowns, and make that information public and fun while we're at it. Now, I did make it through all of my runs, slowly bringing add-ons back in, and the end result is that I don't think I want to play World of Warcraft the way that I do now without the add-ons. Even things such as the cooldown manager feature in Blizzard's UI is lacking in features. I totally agree that Blizzard should break certain parts of the API, Weak auras, for instance, one of my favorite add-ons, and I love the weak auras team so much, but I really don't like going into a boss fight in raid and being handed a couple of add-ons and some weak aura packs that essentially help me solve the fight. I don't want that. I want to be able to parse the fight on my own. I want maybe some simple trackers for maybe basic things I want to keep track of, but it shouldn't be anything more than like a boss move timer. I think about Kaiveza or even Rashanan before her in the first raid tier. I love that those fights were visually very easy to parse. You knew what was going on, you could figure it out by simply looking at the arena, and anything more complicated, you could just open the Adventurer's Guide and read up on the moves and have a better understanding of what was happening. And actually, I think the rest, like Queen Ansarak, even read well. You could really tell what was going on from bit to bit of the fight. But when you go to Oversnacks and you need multiple weak auras and add-ons to get everyone on the same page so that the egg breaks are clean, and you have to have a specific egg breaking order, I don't really mind passing around an order sheet for like recommended ways that we do a fight, but I do actually have a bit of a problem with the fact that I felt like everyone in my raid needed to have these weak auras, and we fought the weak auras more than we fought the boss, and I hated that. Weak auras tracking things like your cooldowns and interface bits and whatnot is awesome. I love people's weak aura packs. They're great. Absolutely great. But for solving a boss fight, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. But I do need to flip the script a little bit here. I do think things like timeline reminders, sending a note to your raid team so that they can refer to information on screen, that stuff is cool. Anything that you would handle with a timer and a second monitor could be an add-on and can probably stay an add-on. I don't want things like that to change. So many add-ons, though, allow you to parse information the way that you want to. I think that's the most important feature here. I don't really care if my friends don't use a lot of add-ons. Sure, there's some that might help our survivability, but at the end of the day, if we're clearing content and having fun hanging out, if I want all the information in the world and they want to keep it as clean as possible with little, that's fine. But I think I mean it now. I think WoW is a better game for its add-ons. I actually think it's one of the coolest parts about the game. I don't really want to see it change too much. I do think a lot of these features need to become baseline. It kind of sucks when you're a new player getting into WoW and there's so much information that you don't have at your fingertips in the base game. I would know because I actually started WoW in Shadowlands. So realistically, I didn't get to play the game through its many iterations. I got to play the game with a bunch of add-ons immediately. People recommending things to me, turning some on, turning some off, and that can get a little complicated for a new player. I think I want the customization, but I want that new player experience to be better. And I think the add-ons and finding ways to have more in-game features is exactly the way to do that. I hope y'all enjoyed this one. This was a very fun topic to research, and honestly very eye-opening. I never would have thought I would see the game in a different light until I played without add-ons, but wow, yeah, it really did make a difference in just how I look at the game. That being said, if you want to know more about my add-ons, if you type Bowser interface into Google, you'll actually find my interface videos, the best flex I have. There'll be more YouTube videos coming soon, more videos for the subathon, and I really mean it, I'm going to be making a lot more videos. I've decided I'm done dating people. I'm sick of dating guys. So you know what we're doing? We're making more YouTube videos, baby. All right, that's it. Love you all, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, friends.